Hello and welcome on in, everybody. Good to see you. My name is Sam Peterson. I'm going to be your host for today's Photoshop challenge. And today we're doing a little bit of Photoshop with Fresco. So I'm going to be showing off kind of how to make a painted text effect using different brush strokes. And we're going to be showing one way to do it in Fresco. If anyone uses Fresco or has it, you can do that. But I'm also going to show you some ways in Photoshop, and we're going to continue the design in Photoshop. So if you're new to Fresco, I want to show you a little cool feature that it has. But before we get started, I want to say hey to everyone. What's up, Paula? I see Wade, our moderator. What's going on, Wade? Got Gareth, Frosia, RB, Tim Loomis, Ted. What's up, Ted? Good to see everyone. Welcome on in. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to bring you on over to Fresco on the iPad. Maybe I'll move myself over to the right so I'm not so much in the way. What I want to show you today with Fresco is something some of you may have seen, some of you maybe haven't, but it's the multicolor swatch tool in Fresco. So there's this little quick button here in the bottom left. If you see me moving this around, you can click and hold it and move it around. But if you press on it and hold, and then you tap to color pick, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, right over here, next to that little dot I made, it's showing that it's multicolor color picker. So if I just hold and pick a color, you'll see that little dot in the bottom left corner turns yellow, turns pink. If I tap and hold, it turns whatever color I'm selecting. But if I hold this multi-touch button and then I click and hold, it'll select different areas. So let's say I want to select right between this blue and green. And the amount of zoom actually affects this. So you see it's selecting more now. And if I make some brush strokes, kind of gives you this cool effect for all those colors. So let me try that again. I'll zoom in a little bit more. We'll try to get like 2 colors here. So I'm going to do the blue and green. I could try the, let's see, I could try the pink and blue. And you get some really interesting effects very quickly, which I think it had a lot of neat possibilities. I also have another image that we could try. We got this paint effect, so you can try different images. Anything with some nice colorful options, I think, has some really cool possibilities. Maybe I'll try it right where this blue and gold intersect. Turn off that background so you can see it. And we get some pretty neat effects. So let's grab some brush strokes from those images. See, so I got my new layer. I'm going to grab between this blue. I like that. Let's try these. Try it both ways. So one is a downstroke, the other is an upstroke. Could try like a C shape. By the way, I'm using the canvas brush. So if you go into the pixel brushes and you go to the painting section, each brush is going to have a bit of a different effect. There's tons of brushes you can try out for this, but for this demonstration, I'm using the canvas brush. We could also try a couple brush strokes for this image. That would be fun. Let's try that. Got to hold on the multi button. Let's try the blue and gold. That's pretty cool. I might want to try another one from the image here. So maybe this like blue and pink would be neat. Turn these backgrounds off. And we get some cool little like paint swatches to work with. So that's kind of what we're going for. You can spend as long as you need kind of getting swatches you like, colors you like. But that's what we're going to do. And we're going to move on over to Photoshop. So I would definitely have fun playing with that. Try out different brushes. There's so many cool effects you can get. A lot of them have a lot of really interesting 3D depth. But we're just using it to grab some paint swatches here. So I'm going to go ahead, close out of Fresco for now, and then we're going to jump into Photoshop. And in Photoshop, I'm going to show you how to do a similar thing with the mixer brush. So if you haven't seen that before, it'll be a similar effect, but a little bit different. So let me put the iPad off to the side here. Is it the same than mixer brush? It's a little bit different. I feel like it's hard to describe exactly how they differ. It is using kind of a bit of a different mechanic, but I would try it out with different brushes in Fresco and then try something similar with different brushes or with, if you have the same brushes in the mixer brush. We're actually going to do a little bit of that now, so you'll be able to kind of see if there's any difference to it. First off, let me see if that transferred over so we can pull that in from Fresco. So I'm opening this in Photoshop. The nice thing is if you have Fresco, you can sync it to Photoshop, so you'll be able to access your Fresco files in Photoshop and vice versa. So I'm pulling it up here, and we have our brush strokes on a different layer. I can do Control A to select all, Control C, Control or Command C. And then I'm going to go put this in here. And I'll just call this Fresco strokes, so we can hold on to those for later. So now what I want to show you is how to do something fairly similar in Photoshop. So let's see, let me make sure I covered everything. Yeah, so let's jump into Photoshop here, make a new layer, just call this mixer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the mixer brush. So if I click and hold on the brush tool, you'll see there's different tools I can select from. And what I want to do is the mixer brush tool. Now for this, I'm using a textured brush. It's part of my brush pack called Sampled Brush 1.3. If anyone's interested, I can actually link that in the Discord. I think I have the link with me right now, so I can put that in there. If anyone's interested, that brush pack should have that brush, but that's what I'm using. And then if you color pick, you'll see it went from gray up here to kind of the same thing where it's selecting part of the image. And from there, it's going to sample that. So you can see it's doing the green, but it starts mixing it in with the colors that I'm going over. So make sure you have sample all layers up here at the top. That's going to make sure it's sampling everything that's on the canvas, not just the current layer, because I have a new layer that I'm painting on to get these brush strokes. But this is a very similar process. I can try the same thing. I'm going to use Alt or Option to color pick right between these two colors. Personally, I like keeping it to two colors. You can go crazy. And this does take a bit to load, by the way. I make the stroke, I try to make a smooth stroke, and then I let it load. Depending on your settings, your brush, and all that, it may take more or less system resources. But if I turn that off, you'll see we get a lot of cool colors kind of like morphing together like paint. I'm going to go ahead and create a background with a new layer. I'm just fill that in with double click my background layer, press enter to allow me to put a layer underneath it. I'm just going to fill that in with white. So I'm going to go back to our mixer layer. And what I like to do is select between two colors and then make a stroke over those two colors. I can try it again, going the other way. You're basically dragging one color into the next. So that looks like kind of a cool brush stroke. Turn that off. Oh, I got my cool brush stroke on the wrong layer. Let's lock these two layers. Let's try that again. Kind of neat. So I'm going to try that with a few different areas. If I see some colors I like, I'm just going to drag over them. I can always redo it if I want to get a better mix between the two colors. I can try this blue and orange. And then we can try our other image too. Make a new layer mixer 2, just allow me to get a clean canvas. I do like this kind of golden red area. I can try that. So if you see any areas that you think would be cool, just try color sampling, stroking. You can color sample from one area and make a stroke somewhere else. It brings some of that gold in. So we got some brush strokes that look like that. So play around, if you see some colors that you like, you can try just getting some cool color combinations. Let's see, maybe I'll try one more of these. So those are some of our strokes. Those are some of our Fresco strokes. And after a while, you get like this, this pretty cool palette. strokes to play with. Kind of putting these together. I'm going to merge these two layers. So we got our Photoshop strokes and our Fresco strokes. Let's see here. All right, so what I want to do next is show you kind of a cool option that's similar to these, but a little bit different. So I'm going to use this cookie layer here. What's going on, Peter? How you doing, by the way? Good to see everyone. I don't know if we had anyone jumping in since last time. Oliver, good to see you. What's up? Umacorn, hello. Alessandra, welcome on in, everybody. I've never had a macaron before. Oh man, I'm actually a fan. I haven't had them too often, but I've had some that are pretty good. I'd recommend trying it for sure. It's probably also like one of the more colorful foods, you know? So as an artist, you gotta try one. Let's see. So what I want to do next is I'm gonna make a new layer. I'm trying to separate all these layers that we're painting on. But before I do that, let's create some text. And I'm going to change the font to a script, and maybe I'll write my name. And now what I want to show you how to do is to how to use a path to get the same effect where we use the mixer tool, we use the brush tool in Fresco, but you can use things like the mixer tool or the brush or the smudge tool by using a path. So you don't have to hand paint these things, especially if you don't have a tablet or if you want more precise control. You might find it really helpful to do this via a path, and I'll show you how to do that. And if I'm tracing text, that's something I'm gonna want to do. So let's try using this. I placed it over some colors I thought would be cool. We have the green, the blue, the pink, back to blue and orange. I like how that goes across those colors. I think that would be a good look. So let me try making a path. I'll select my pen tool over here on the left, and I'm going to do my best just to trace this. I'm not going to spend too long on this because we're always limited for time, but I can go back here. I'm holding Control Command to click a point and adjust the little handles. That's the great thing about the pen tool. If anyone's not familiar with it, you always have that flexibility of going back and adjusting it to get it just right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer, Control Command Shift N, and we'll call this Path Paint, I guess. And what I want to do is I want to hide my text. I want to select, let's try selecting the smudge tool because we used the mixer brush before, but I also want to show that you can use the smudge tool. I'm using that same textured brush. You can try this with different brushes for completely different effects. I have the strength all the way up at 95, and I have sample all layers selected. So that's going to give it a really strong effect, and it's going to, sample from the layer below. So I go to paths, and I have this work path that I just created selected. Now at the bottom, you'll see this little circle, second from the left, and if you hover over it, it should say stroke path with brush. If I click that, this should work, assuming I didn't do anything incorrect. There we go. And also I should mention that check your brush size, because if you want it to kind of mimic the text, you probably want that brush with a similar size to the text. So my brush could be maybe a notch smaller, but I think that looks fine. So what I could try is I could go back in with my pen tool. Let's see here. Just gonna go ahead and delete that path so I can make a new one here. Doing this kind of quick. And when I'm clicking each time, I'm dragging a little bit to pull those handles out to kind of get some precision and allow me the flexibility of creating it later. So that looks pretty good. I might go back in here, select a point with Control Command so I can adjust that. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect. Oops. But I want to get it pretty decent. Oops, I put an extra point there. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So once again, I'm going to hide my text because if you don't, it'll paint over the top of the text. It'll include that in. Let me try to adjust that just a little bit. There we go. So hide that text. We're on the path paint layer. Go to paths, the tab, and then that little second circle from the left at the very bottom, stroke path with brush. Try that. Oh, you know why it didn't work? It's because I don't have my smudge tool selected. So I have the pen tool selected. Make sure you have the brush that you're doing the stroke with selected, that tool. And then let's try that again. There we go. And now it's going to load that and give us a final result. So I can hide this, and that's our little painted text. So I think that looks pretty cool. I can take my name, make it more upright. I wish the A and the S were a little bit more connected color-wise, but that's all going to do with the positioning of your path and your text. So if you really want them to blend together, just kind of see how they're overlaying the colors. Macaroons. Macaroons are the coconut ones. They're a little bit different, but I think those are really easy to confuse. I feel like I forget which one's which pretty often. I gotta say I like macaroon better in terms of a word. Let's see. So I showed you how to do the trace. Okay, so what we can do is we can um, take these methods that we worked with. We did trace. You can do this trace not just with the smudge tool, like I said. You can do it with the mixer tool. You could even do it with the brush tool. So I would try out different methods, different brushes, kind of experiment, see what you like. But we also have some brush strokes we made, and we actually have quite a few to choose from. These are some ones that I created previously. I think, man, I have a lot to choose from. And that's kind of the fun thing. The more of these you do, especially with different brushes, with different textures. I was using the canvas brush in Fresco. But there's some really cool effects you can get. I personally kind of like this blue-green. It's just a color combo I really enjoy. So I'm going to select that, and that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to Control C that, and I can put all my brush strokes in my assets folder just to hide them. Got that. Move this over here. I'm gonna go get rid of that path just to get it out of the way. And let's try something different here. So I'm gonna try some new text. And I'm gonna try a different font. Maybe they'll just do this. Adobe Garamond Pro. Make that black. And I'm gonna make this a lot bigger because this is gonna be a more in-depth piece that we're doing. I think that should be pretty good. So I don't know if I grabbed this already. I'm gonna grab that paint stroke I like. Hide these assets. And then I'm gonna just group that first set of images we did just to get it out of my way so we can work in a clean environment. So I'm gonna press paste. I may scale this down a bit. And I'm just gonna try to trace the M. So I'll put a copy here. I want to make a copy of this. So I have two of these right now. I'm going to save this copy and just keep it out of my way. Because I'm going to need a few of these. All right, so let's see if we have time for this. I'm going to basically just arrange this and warp it into place. Now, warp, you go to Edit, Transform, Warp. I have that hotkey to F4 because I use it so frequently with my work. So I'm going to lower the opacity on the brush stroke so I can see the text behind it. And we'll see if we can make this work. So I'm pressing F4 for my hotkey. You'll have to go to Edit and Warp. But you can hotkey that too if you want to save some time. I recommend any tool that you use frequently, you hotkey it. Now, warp can be something that you can spend quite a bit of time on. It can be kind of tricky. Um, and I don't need to get this perfect because I might do some masking here. But I just want to get it like as close as I can. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to press enter to confirm that. I can take the opacity back, kind of get a better look. Let's try duplicating that master copy again. Control or Command J to duplicate. That's a hotkey that I use all the time. We'll try flipping this one this way to kind of conform to that curve that we see. Whoops, let me redo that. I'm trying to get it to match the curve off the bat. I'm going to lower the opacity of that, and once again, it's going to be Edit, Transform, Warp. So I'm going to use my hotkey and just kind of warp that to fit the text as best I can. Again, if you are doing these challenges, take your time. Take as long as you need to. Try not to be too perfect about it so you guys don't, watch me for 15 hours here, but all right, I'm going to press enter there. That's good enough for now. I'm going to take my master copy down at the bottom, Control or Command J, drag it up, and then lower the opacity of that as well so I can see underneath it. And we'll do one more. Flip it this way. And if you, well, actually, I'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to be doing some overlapping to create some depth, but the S is one continuous line. I probably chose a difficult letter to show this effect off. But if you have any text where there's overlapping lines, it's going to give us an opportunity to have some fun with the depth in this. So let me just try to conform this to the S tail the best we can, and I'll show you that next step. So this is just another method to create text. It's a little bit more involved. You have a bit more control. Really just depends on what you're going for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure the opacity for each one of those layers is put back to 100. And then I'm going to arrange them a little bit more attractively. I think I want the top layer to be on the top, the middle one to be in the middle, and the bottom one to be on the bottom layer-wise. So I'm just going to reorganize these. And it's not a bad idea to name them. So this will be middle. This will be top. I am a team name your layers for sure. This will be bottom. If for no other reason, then I get really confused when there's too many layers. So I'm going to go ahead and mask some of this out. I'm going to take the middle and I'm going to click the little mask button down at the bottom. And I'm going to use a brush, not a mixer brush. I'm going to use an airbrush here, soft round brush. And I'm going to select black to mask out some of this and blend it a little bit on those harsh edges. Black to conceal, white to reveal. See a little corner sticking out there. My top layer needs a mask too, so I'm going to select my top layer, click that mask button at the bottom of the layers panel, make sure I have black selected, and then blend that a little bit too. That's not too bad. And now what I want to do, let's see, before we run out of time, I want to take my middle layer, select it, create a new layer, Control-Shift-N, Control or Command-Shift-N. We'll just name this Shadow. And then I'm going to right-click that, create clipping mask to clip it to my middle layer. I'm going to select kind of a purpley, desaturated mid-tone purple. You can see where my color picker is there. Make sure my layer is set to multiply. Surprise, surprise, we're using a multiply layer. And I'm going to just add a little bit of shadow here where those strokes look like they're overlapping. So anywhere it looks like something's overlapping, that's kind of an opportunity to add a little bit of shadow and add some more depth. I'm going to do Control or Command Shift N, make one more shadow layer before we run out of time here. Clip it to my bottom layer. Paint a little bit of shadow in there too. So when we remove the text, I could adjust a little bit. I don't like that corner, but we do kind of get this cool painted effect. You could do a whole name like that. You could use the path trace option with the mixer brush or the smudge tool. Or you could just hand write it out if you like that too. We have all these different brush strokes we created, both in Fresco with the multicolor swatch tool, and I use the canvas brush in Fresco. We did it in Photoshop with the mixer tool. We also use the smudge tool with path trace, and then we kind of warp things manually. So some different options to play with to get a painted text effect. Try it out. You don't need to do a whole word. You can do one letter. You can do as much or as little as you need or as you want. Get creative with it. Have fun with it. And thanks so much for joining, everyone. I really appreciate it. I will see you all next time. Have a great one, everybody.